Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second meeting of Bright Garden Voices. I'm going to share my screen now for a second. Yeah, and just a second. I'm going to wait. I'm going to make you my co-host of the meeting so you can accept people while I'm on full screen. Okay. I think you can accept people now because some people are still joining. So, welcome everybody to our second meeting of Bright Garden Voices. For those who are joining for the first time, we will present a little bit what this project is about. So, Bright Garden Voices is we intend to provide a platform for dialogue between Azerbaijanis and Armenians without the usual noise and insults that come on online discussion. We thought, how can we create a space that's safe and where real productive discussions can be held rather than just attacks or things like this. That's how we came up with this idea where we have guests from both countries in each episode, and we ask them questions related to the determined theme of each meeting. And we also have an audience which can participate throughout the meeting. We're not affiliated with any organization, government. We are independent people who are organizing this. In my case, my name is Diego Ardoan. I'm from Argentina. I'm neither Armenian nor Azerbaijani, but I've been involved in Armenian studies for a long time, and but not really more about the diaspora, about the relations with Turkey, not that much about the Republic of Armenia. So during the war, I realized that this is something that I should focus on as well, and I realized how there was this lack of options for communication, for real communication, and that's kind of like how this idea started to grow in my head. And I'm joined by two wonderful co-hosts and organizers of this project. Aidan, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. First of all, welcome everyone to the second meeting of Bright Garden Voices. And yeah, my name is Aidan. I am from Azerbaijan. Yeah, as most Azerbaijanis, I am someone who's really heavily affected by the conflict in terms of feelings of pain and injustice associated with the first Karabakh war, but also with the second war when it comes to my family, for instance, living in some of the cities that were bombed during the second war. The reason I'm involved in this program is because I believe that it is important for regular people from both Azerbaijan and Armenia to have their voices heard and to listen to each other. So that's what I hope this platform will help facilitate. And my role here is to be a moderator. Any opinion that I might express, it's my own, and it is not aimed to represent any group, state, or organization. And with that, I will pass the word to Arnold.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our second meeting. I am Arnold, I am Armenian, and I am joining from the United States. I am only a moderator in this program, and if I express any views, I am only representing myself and not any nation or organization or group. The wounds and losses of the recent war are still very fresh, especially for the Armenians. On top of that, there is the ongoing POW crisis. And it is not in spite all of this, but in my opinion, because of the difficult post-war situation that ordinary people from both sides deserve to have their voices heard. Now let's go to Diego for the topic of today's meeting.
Well, as you all might have seen, the title of our second meeting today is Talking Through the Lens. And the idea for this meeting is to talk about the images, be it photography or video, that have helped shape the understanding of the conflict for both sides during the whole conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And how can as well these images or visuals be used as a tool for dialogue and understanding. For this reason is that we invited people, so to say, who are in this subject from both countries, and which are Arpi and Orkhan. We will introduce them in a while. And yes, Arnold.
Right. So let us move on to today's agenda. So each of our meetings will generally have two guests, individuals who are in some way involved with matters regarding Armenians and Azerbaijanis. We have already introduced the project, and we, the moderators, introduced ourselves as well. Next, we will have a discussion with our wonderful guests. After this, we will open the virtual floor to the audience for questions. You will forward your question as a private message to Diego. If you have your camera and microphone turned on, then we can unmute you to ask the question yourself. We will end the meeting with a few closing remarks. And lastly, the meeting will be recorded and made available online. Now let us go to Aidan for the house rules.
Yeah, as you can see on the screen, we have some basic house rules for all of our meetings, and we would like to kindly ask you to respect them. In short, we do not tolerate insults, disrespectful language, generalizations about any ethnicity, any type of denialism, and we call you to empathize and not to accuse. In light of today's topic, we also ask you to be mindful that some of the photographs and footage you might want to bring up can be disturbing or triggering for other people. Every participant is the one and only person who is responsible for what they say and is not here to represent neither their government nor their nation. Remember, we are not here to agree with each other. We are just here to listen to each other, and it's more than okay to agree to disagree. And with that, I would actually like to introduce our first guest, Arpi. So Arpi is a video maker from Armenia. She's a graduate of the GIAPA Caucasus School of Journalism. And lately she's been working as a freelance journalist and filmmaker. She's working with Chaykhana and Voice of America. Currently, she's studying peace building and conflict transformation in Italy. Welcome, Arpi.
Thank you, Aidan. Thank you very much. And also thank you for this meeting and the opportunity to discuss, to have a discussion without any background noise, as you said. And yeah, hopefully it will go really well. I'm excited for this.
Great. And our next guest, Arnold.
Yes, our next guest is Orkhan Abbasov. Orkhan is from Azerbaijan, and he's joining us today from Lisbon. He is a photographer and an aspiring filmmaker. He has Bachelor's of Arts and Master's of Arts degrees in architecture from the University of Lisbon. And Orkhan is interested in joining other artists from the South Caucasus in collaborative projects involving photography and film. Orkhan and Arpi, thank you for joining us. And with that, we will start the questions. And I will first go to Arpi. So how did the recent war and the first Karabakh war affect you, your family, and your community?
Thank you for the question. I think if you are talking from the Armenian side, it is still affecting. It still has its consequences. And during the war, it was really difficult to feel what is war doing to us and how it is affecting. Because if we are talking about images, especially in the social media and in the media generally, war was romanticized very much in both sides, I guess. And we had this very romantic and very powerful image that we have this power and we have this event going on which is romanticized, that we wouldn't imagine how we would feel after it ends. So the thing is that when war ended, the effect was even bigger and huger than during the war. And for me personally, my father was in Stepanakert for some weeks, almost a month during the war. And there were days that I couldn't connect to him. I couldn't know how he is. So in some days it was like a horror, but it still continues and it still goes on. So it's really difficult to say, like to generalize how it affected. I think we will still see the consequences for some months or even years. But the bad thing is that I saw many people around me, many friends, many professors. I had family members changing very quickly, changing their minds and thoughts, which was really depressing. And I felt powerless about that. And I felt powerless about people who were in the front, who were my friends, who were my classmates, who were people 6 or 7 years younger than me, and I couldn't do anything for them.
Thank you so much for sharing that, RP. Orkhan, how about you? How did the first war or the recent war affect you, your family, and the people close to you?
Hello, everyone. About the first war, I can say that the paradigm was the totally opposite to Armenia. The people after the Azerbaijanis, after they lost the first war, they were humiliated. And this was a big trauma, a victimization of the society. And of course, on any occasion, like on a holiday, birthday, or any morning, you could hear the voices, Karabakh will be ours one day. During the war, the second war, well, first of all, I think the whole Azerbaijan became like united like a nation. And I don't remember myself any other moment throughout the history that I lived. This unification of the people. I think it was very hard for everyone, especially people living in Azerbaijan. And because of the COVID situation, the people were in lockdown at their homes. So they were projected only to the to what they were shown from TV, and I think it was very, very difficult for everyone. My family, they were heavily affected. I didn't expect my mother and my sister to be so affected. Yeah, they were like not in a bad shape, but yeah, they were heavily affected by the conflict. And myself as well, like I had like anxiety all the time. I was obsessed with my mobile phone, scrolling down to refresh the news feed, and not sleeping well. When I heard the loud noises, I was afraid. Like I don't know why, but I imagined these were explosions. And then I was seeing if it's me being many thousand kilometers far away from the conflict, what people in Azerbaijan, and especially people inside the conflict zone or close to the conflict zone, are experiencing. I think this was a horror for them. And yeah, only after the war, after 44 days, I started like realizing what was it, and well, I understood that if we don't want to, if me personally, if I don't want to the story to repeat itself for the third time, or I don't, maybe if it's not even if it wasn't the second time, then I have to do something. I have to investigate more. I have to engage in the relationship building process with Armenia and Armenians, and have to engage in the peaceful solution of the post-conflict situation. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Orkhan. We can move to Aidan.
Yes. So speaking of engagement, I'm curious to ask you, Arpi, can you tell us a little bit about your interactions that you might have had with Azerbaijanis in your daily life or maybe in your line of work?
Yes, sure. And my interactions with Azerbaijanis and my relationships that I had in Jipa, in Georgia, living 2 years there, was even harder because when I came back to Armenia, after some months, the war started. And I had all this experience of 2 years living together with Azerbaijanis, living in the same city, studying together. And now we were divided in two different parts of this conflict. And it was really scary. And when I first went to Georgia, it was really difficult to talk to Azerbaijanis about the conflict. I remember that we had a training about conflict transformation. We started talking together. And it was the first time I understood that as Armenians, we were also under a huge propaganda by media and by state. And I never realized that before talking to Azerbaijanis about their perspective also of this war and this conflict. So it changed me 180% degrees to what I was thinking about this conflict, how I was seeing this conflict. And this was thanks to my friends, Azerbaijani friends, who were able to understand me also, not only talk about their perspective. Yeah.
How did you deal with, did you manage to stay in touch with your friends during the war?
Yeah, some of them, yeah. Some of them I am not in touch anymore, understandably. But also some Armenian friends, I am not in touch with them as well because of their perspective and how their minds changed. But yeah, I have some very close Azerbaijani friends who I am in touch with and with whom we were on the same line with our thoughts and our ideas on all of this.
Thank you, Arpi. I like to ask Orkhan also if, Orkhan, did you have any interactions with Armenians in your daily life or maybe working also?
For me, this topic, like Armenians in general, was taboo. I don't know why. Like I can't explain. It was something that I knew. I always knew. And I think the first encounter with Armenians to me happened when I was on the students' conference in Paris, and I met two Armenian guys, and I don't remember, maybe we even shook each other's hand, but then we just kind of ignored each other because I think we didn't know how to behave. After that, when that was during my time living in Azerbaijan, and when I came back, I started thinking like, the logic tells me that Armenians are our enemy because they occupied our lands. But do I really feel hatred for them in my heart? And my answer was no. And I didn't know why not, or why should I? Then the second time, when I was making the first year of master's in Lisbon, we had some Belarusian friends. And once when we had like a party at their place, they invited one Armenian girl that I didn't know, and she started making, I think it was like kutabs, but she told they were lavashiki or lavashiki, I don't know how to pronounce it. And I was in the same kind of mindset that like I don't feel any hatred towards her, but something inside, like I don't know, just I don't know, something inside me, inside my brain, tells me that that's not right, as being in the same space. And I was like, Lavashiki, like, no, it's ours. It's not Armenia, it's ours, blah blah blah. And I don't know, like maybe like I wasn't aggressive or anything, but maybe just annoying. And after a while, like maybe after 1 hour or two, she left. And now when I remember this event, I'm very embarrassed, and I would love to just to say that I'm sorry for this behavior. So that was the second time for me. The third time was when I discovered this beautiful foundation based in Lisbon, in Portugal, called, in Portuguese, it's called Fundação Gulbenkian, or Gulbenkian Foundation. It's by Armenian mecenas called, I think, Gulbenkian. Here it's pronounced like Gulbenkian. And it's like a beautiful place. It's the biggest, one of the biggest artistic foundations in Europe. And I think the biggest in Portugal, even bigger than any governmental foundation. It supports art, artists. They have beautiful building, beautiful landscape design. It's a big park where this foundation sits. And when I discovered it, I was also like, should I enter? Should I enter not? Because like, will I be a traitor if I enter? And after a while, like I dropped this thinking and just experienced, and it was beautiful place, beautiful space. And there is a very huge collection of the of art from the East, like from Turkey, from different places, from Iran. This man is a very interesting figure. His father made money from the oil in Baku, so there is a lot of connection. And himself, he was also a businessman. He was very rich person. Then the second time, it was like the very strangest encounter that I made in Tbilisi with Armenians. I was staying in a hostel, and there was this Mongolian, I think he was from Mongolia, guy who was speaking Russian, Ukrainian, Georgian, Armenian, English, who was from the United States. He was like studying something war-related or peace-related, I don't remember, some kind of politics, geopolitics. And he told me like, you're Azerbaijani? Let's go with me to one place. So we went to Chaykhana, and he said to me like, all these people are from Armenians. And I'm like, and I felt even a little bit like a hostage. And they became very curious. And I didn't know at the time that like Georgia and Tbilisi, it's like the common ground for Azerbaijanis and Armenians. And many of them, they spoke Azerbaijani. They were from Azerbaijani Armenians. And they gave me the tea, and I was like afraid that it was poisoned. Yeah, and but it went well. But yeah, I was very surprised. Like, it was a very strange situation. Yeah, and the fifth encounter that I'm experiencing right now through this piece, something list that Diogo has created on Twitter. I have found like a footage, documentaries, short documentaries from Nagorno-Karabakh about Armenians that are talking about post-war situation there in different places, villages. And there is no commentary from director. It's only people commenting things, the situation, what they think about everything, like future, their losses, everything, their pain. And yeah, so I engaged in conversation with director who is a Karabahi Armenian girl. And like from the beginning, I felt like she has a good heart. But like we were not agreeing with many things, but I tried to understand her because I think for me it's easier. I'm not in the region. I wasn't taking part in the conflict myself, not even living in my country at the time. So like I was just trying to normalize our conversation and to show her that we're like I'm a person the same as you, and I know that you are the same person as me, and like I wanted to show her that I'm not her enemy, and I don't think about her or other Armenians as our enemies. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Orkhan. Thank you for sharing those very interesting stories, life experiences you've had. Thank you. Let us go to Arpi now. And Arpi, I want to ask you about your two films, one of them Safe Zone and the other Them, Us and the Ruins. And by the way, I'm a huge fan of both. They're great and I highly recommend all of you to watch it if you haven't yet. So let's start with Safe Zone. How could you describe it to someone who hasn't seen it?
Thank you, Arnold. So Safe Zone is actually my final project also of JIPA, this university that I was studying in with Azerbaijanis. And yeah, this is how it starts, the film, basically. It is about Armenian and Azerbaijani communities in Georgia, and it is basically about people who cannot talk to each other in their own countries, who cannot visit each other, who cannot interact in any way. And this another country, a third country that they can go and they can study together becomes a safe zone for them to talk to each other and to understand each other. And this was a story of all of us studying there, and not only those studying there, but also our friends who were coming and going all the time, who were starting engaging in the conversations with our help. So I couldn't show any of the faces of my friends because I understood at that moment that it could be dangerous. And the whole film is without any faces. It's just opinions, voices, and our feelings and emotions through all the time that we spent together and through the transformation we all went through. And I think many people can find themselves in this film. It doesn't matter if they had this interaction in Georgia, in Russia, or in Europe, in America. People who couldn't meet in Armenia and in Azerbaijan, but met in third place in a safe zone. And this was a safe zone for me because also I had this experience every month or once in 2 months going back to Armenia and feeling that, having this feeling that I'm living in parallel universes in Armenia and in Georgia, while it's just 5 hours distance. But it was totally different worlds because in Armenia, I couldn't talk about my friends. I couldn't share my experience that much with my family and with my friends. I should choose every word I was using. I should be careful not to hurt anyone. And then I was going back to Georgia and it seemed like there was no conflict at all when we became friends already after some months. And conflict was something that we were discussing for months. But then in the end, that was not our main topic.
Thank you. Can you tell us now a little about Them, Us, and the Ruins?
Yeah, sure. So this film is done after the war ended, and before Armenia had to hand over Kelbajar to Azerbaijan, we had some days to visit Kelbajar region and also the monastery, Gadivank Monastery, which is very famous, and Armenians have emotional attachment to that monastery. So there was this feeling that we are leaving this monastery to Azerbaijan, and people were going around, like going from all over Armenia to Kelbajar to see the monastery for the last time. And I went there to show their emotions. I went for this monastery, but it turned out that there was much more to show from this region than just the monastery. People who had to leave right now, Armenians who had to leave Kelbajar, and also graveyards of Azerbaijanis who left Kelbajar in the 90s. So this place was something to show and something to experience. And I just had this one day to be there. And I hope to be there once again, maybe in some years.
Thank you. This might be, you already sort of answered this, but what inspired you to make these films and what was the message or messages you wanted to communicate with your audience?
Yeah, I wanted to show with this film, Them, Us, and the Ruins, I wanted to show that there is human story in the conflict, and it's not just, we will win or the other side will win, because in the conflict like this, there are no winners after all. There are no winners in the war because this is human tragedy, and we see this horror visiting this place, because I don't think that we won in 90s, and I don't think that Azerbaijani side won now. The winning would be ending this conflict peacefully. Even now, we can still win it peacefully after all this. I think like this, but now I don't see it. So I just wanted to show human face of the conflict in both films, I think.
And also, what are some reactions you received? How did people react to these films?
Yeah, of course, there were also bad reactions, and from both sides. For the last film, there were bad reactions from Armenians who were saying, who were seeing me as a betrayer, as a traitor, and from Azerbaijanis who thought that I'm not 100% on it. So it's always like, there will always be people who will not be satisfied, but yet there were many people who I know had this kind of nationalistic minds, but started rethinking some things after the films, and have been talking to me, writing to me about the films and the perspectives that might be changing in their minds, which I think was the first aim I had filming both of these films.
Thank you, Arpi. And Orkhan, I was wondering, how do these two short films resonate with you? Is there anything you want to say about them?
Yeah, with great pleasure. I haven't seen the last one, the second one, and I've seen the Safe Zone twice. I recommend everyone to see this film. When I first saw it, I was like, it's a nice, friendly movie. Like, yeah, that's it. Then I saw it yesterday to be able to talk today about the film, and I just fell in love with the film. And I thought, wow, that's the best film I saw, like on the topic. It's not covering one side or another side. It's like you should see it. So there's a very beautiful. It's a very poetic film. Okay, I think she's a poet. Arpi is a poet, and there is a very beautiful prologue. But I think we don't have enough time, so I will just try to accelerate. Just see the film. There's a very beautiful prologue to the film. And I wanted to comment some citations of her protagonists in the film, her friends, and just give my perspective on what they're saying. So one of the protagonists saying, Arpi is saying, I have started practicing being Armenian, being afraid of Turks, hating Azerbaijanis. These two roles were part of my identity. I already commented on this. For me, Armenians were taboo. I didn't hate them. I didn't know how to behave myself towards them. Next one. Never sit at the same table with Armenians. They will seem friendly at the first glance, but they're not. That was some guy's father telling to him. And I thought probably his father was victimized or like by betrayal of the friendly relationship that they had in the Soviet times. And that's like he wants to protect his kid, his child, his son. That's why he's saying this, because he knew that that wasn't true at the time. It became somehow true. Next one. We're so similar physically, traditionally. Absolutely agree. I think we have different language, different religion, but like everything is all the same. Like the food is all the same. It's just called, we call it different names. And I think this war was only possible when somehow we dehumanized each other. Because if we just try to talk with one person, very like from the first minute, we understand that we're so similar. It's like fighting your, I don't know, like cousin, something like this. Next one. It's all about ego. You being hurt, not thinking the other ones is hurt too. Yeah, that's also makes part of the dehumanization. Like if you call a person an enemy and you're not imagining the face behind this name, it's just like I don't know, a concept. It's a concept. It's not a living thing, so it's easier to fight the concept than really fighting people. We all know we lived good together. We don't want to remember because it's easier to justify war. I don't remember why I'm reading this. Yeah, basically it's the same thing that I did already comment for it. How can anyone win a war that takes away and distorts so many lives? How can hatred, fear, and isolation become a weak victory? Totally agree. I just wanted to repeat this question that Arpi is asking, and maybe when the audience will engage with us, maybe they can answer this question. I don't know, or not. Yeah, that's it. Excellent movie. Thank you very much, Arpi.
Thank you, Orkhan.
Thank you, Orkhan. Aidan, let's go to you.
Yes. For the next question, let's touch upon again film and photography as a sort of means for something. And what we're curious is, how can films and photography, or like what kind of sentiments or messages can films or photographs communicate that words cannot? And what is it that you want to express or communicate to your audience, for instance? Arpi, sorry, I didn't say. I was addressing the question to you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know. I think from my part, I already said what is my aim to show to the people. What are my ideas in my photos or films, and for the messages that films and photography can communicate to the people, I think it's very different. It can be the same truth, the same facts can be interacted. You can take the same story and show it in two different ways and shape two different societies with this. So I'm just curious if this film is in Russian or in English. I hope it is. This is a Down of the Sad Street, Armenian film, which is, I think, the most honest film, fiction film about First Karabakh conflict. It shows the human story again of this tragedy and human story of the conflict. A mother who doesn't want her kids, her two sons, to go to die. And also there is of course other types of movies which are romanticizing war, which are making this powerful image of one side. If you change, I can show this is the line, Kyanku Kri in Armenian, which is again romanticizing the war very badly. It was filmed recently, 5 years ago, I think, and there is also a second part of it. And the other one is my favorite film from Azerbaijan, Everything is for the Best. And again, very human story and also very good humor. Again, about First Karabakh War, about 90s. And during this war, even when the war was not over yet, I tried to convince my mother to watch this movie, and she was, after all, she was convinced, and we watched this movie together, and it affected her, I think, a lot, because she saw this other side, this human side, and it was very strange to watch her watching this movie. So yeah, I think also for Armenians, it's very important to watch movies from Azerbaijan that are showing the human side of the story, and also for Azerbaijanis to watch the movies from Armenian side. And I hope that the Down of the Sad Street, the Armenian movie, can be found online in Russian, and Azerbaijanis who are interested can watch that one also.
Thank you so much, Arpi. We'll make sure to include the names of the movies on our Twitter page later on. All right, let's move on to Orkhan. What do you think, so the same question, what do you think, what kind of messages and sentiments can films and photographs communicate that you can't communicate it through words?
The images, they communicate a lot, and I think we really have to be very mindful of using this any images in general, and it's always up to the author, either director or photographer, how he shapes the story. So even if we see something and it is a fact, the way we perceive it can be very different. I didn't want to include like some disturbing images in my presentation, but right now I just can't remember the, let's say, the reportage that the Russian photojournalist Wargonzo was making, and it was very disturbing. And like most of the time, he was lying. And but the way, first of all, during the war, you don't know if he lies or not, because only several days or weeks after, you know if that was true or not. And he was here, like, but it could have been any other different people just twisting the story or the event. So the images are very powerful. I think we need to document things, but really have to be very mindful of what we sharing, producing. Yeah, they're like a weapon. They're a tool and a weapon. Yeah.
Thank you, Orkhan.
Okay.
Arnold.
Thank you. So the next question, I want to talk about sort of iconic visuals. So Arpi, let's go to you first. What are some iconic photographs or footages relating to Armenian-Azerbaijani conflict or coexistence that you think had a huge impact in perceiving matters relating to Armenians and Azerbaijanis in both societies?
I think if we go back to the first Karabakh War, those are the images and photos, documentations from Sumgait and Khojaly that made this image perspective, this enemy perspective for both sides. For Azerbaijanis, that was the photos from Khojaly, and for Armenians, that was the videos and photos from Sumgait. So we have been watching all this over the years, and we had this image. Yeah, this photo is before going to the Second Karabakh War. This is from July, from the events in Tavush and Tovuz regions. And this is very iconic photo, I think, because it said like Minsk group has new ideas, and the house is ruined with a bomb, or I don't know. So it's very iconic to see this paper, and this is not from 2020, the paper, but from 2011, or I don't remember now, but it's very old. And it was there and under the glasses, under the broken glasses. And then it goes to Second War. Yeah, this image was very widespread in Armenia, and it was also on the streets. You could see this image with the hashtag "We Will Win." But again, this romanticizing thing, because this guy actually died after some days. This photo was taken. So this guy and his image became the image for Armenians of the Karabakh War. But of course, we don't know his story. We don't know if we wanted to be there. We don't know anything about him. We just have this image of a guy and the hashtag "We Will Win." And there are other photos as well. If you, yeah, for me, the photo of this man from Ganja who is showing his child was very shocking. The first thing, I had the feeling about the other side. I mean, I was talking to my friends. I knew what was going on in Azerbaijan as well. But this photo really touched me. And I think after this photo, I couldn't sleep for a whole night. And yeah, of course, I saw from Armenian side justification of bombing Ganja, and from Azerbaijani side, justification of bombing Stepanakert. But when you see these kind of photos, these kind of images and videos from both sides that are not about the winning, that are not about nationalism and taking back the land or keeping the lands, but are about human beings who lost their loved ones, you see what it really is about. And yeah, this was a video, and I made a screen from that video. an Armenian musician playing in Kazanchesos church in Shusha. And yeah, this video went viral in Armenia. And after Shusha was taken, it became even more. This is representing Shushi for us, this church itself. And also after that, there was a wedding in the church. You can see that photo as well. Yeah, these are kids also from Shushi in front of the Kazanchesos church. And these kids were then filmed again in Armenia. They became refugees. Now they are in Armenia, and they found each other. And there was a video also of these kids finding each other and hugging each other in Armenia. And also the wedding photo. There is, yeah, these are the photos that shaped also these feelings for Shushi and for losing it for Armenians. And this church represents all of it on our side. And there are maybe other photos, I don't remember. Yes, this one is from RFI. They did photos in Armenia in different cities and different regions. And this is, these are the black lens of the guys who died. And you can see in just one street, one little street, 4 names of 4 guys who died in 44-day war. And this makes you realize how huge it was. Yeah, I guess this was it. And I just, yeah.
Thank you. I don't want to sidetrack, but I believe the artilleryman you showed, I believe he became a bigger deal, right? As events went on. So his name was Arthur, I believe.
His name was Albert, this guy's name.
Okay, and I believe he passed away very soon. He died in the war.
Yeah, after some days after of this photo, and there were some photos taken of him, not only this one, and there was also a video of him eating Snickers or something. So it went viral in all the media. And yeah, he became a symbol.
Yeah, it seems like he became even more iconic and sort of representative of many soldiers, young soldiers in the war.
Yeah.
Thank you. Orkhan, how about you? What do you think, what kind of sort of photographs or footages can you think of that have become very iconic, especially for Azerbaijani society in relating to sort of Armenian and Azerbaijani conflicts?
Can we go to the next picture, please? Yeah. I think the most iconic pictures were taken by Reza Degati. He's Iranian Azerbaijani who is living in France, but he's a citizen of the world. He's working worldwide, and he covered First and the Second Karabakh War. And before talking about this photo, this is his photo from the First Karabakh War. I wanted to scroll to the next 2 pictures just to make a quick comparison, because basically this is the same city, the same place. And the next one, please. But there is a difference between these 3 photos. The first one is iconic. The two next pictures are evidences of the war or post-war situation. They are documents, but they're not iconic images as for me. And I will try to explain why. Can we go to the first picture? So this picture, for the people who don't know what's going on here, is a little bit strange. If I would, like, when I didn't know what's really happening here, I was seeing that's a beautiful picture. There is a woman that is mourning someone, or she's terrified with something. On her right, there is a man that has a strange, not a smile, but kind of strange grimace. I don't know how it's called. A strange, I'll say smile, but it's not a smile on his face. And then on her left, there is a man that is just passing by, kind of. And what this picture depicts, it really depicts the this woman. She just saw some of her relatives that were brought from Khojaly, so after the Khojaly tragedy, and that was her reaction. And he was able to catch this picture And there are a lot of elements, like how he framed it. It's not only her, it's people on her side. There is also the Agdam mosque in the background that survived. It's the only surviving building in the city. And yeah, for me, this is an iconic picture because of many things, because of the story behind it, and because of the way he captured it. He captured the decisive moment, the unique moment. If he would capture 1 second before or after, probably it wouldn't have this impact. So can we go to the next picture? This is the mosque that survived, the only building that survived in the city, the only standing building. Can we go to the next picture? These are just documents. They're not iconic pictures for me. Yeah, this is the Agdam city, ghost city now. So yeah, please go to next picture. This is also iconic picture. I think that's the most famous picture of Reza Degati in Azerbaijan. It's a picture from the First Karabakh War, and it's called The Last Tea. Reza Degati, he was the last photojournalist who left Shusha, and that's basically the last picture that was taken by Azerbaijani side in Shusha. So we see some militaries in the background, but it's all about the backstory. And when you imagine that, like in the time span for 30 years almost, no Azerbaijani visited this place. Like it's very iconic, has very deep sacral meaning, even I would say, to Azerbaijanis. Can we go to the next picture, please? That's the picture also was by Reza Degati from 2020 after Shusha was recaptured. And basically it's the same picture framed differently. That's called a first tea. The first time in this time span, Azerbaijanis entered Shusha, and it's also iconic because it remembers us about the first picture. So you can make a lot of parallels. I think every person will interpret it in a different way. And of course, there is this view overlooking Khankendi, Stepanakert. So there's like a lot of meanings, a lot of layers to this picture. And this picture is iconic. It will stay iconic. Can we go to the next picture, please? So this is the picture made by just a normal person, Azerbaijani, that visited Shusha after liberation. And there were a lot of pictures like this. I'm just giving you one example, but this is the pictures of Reza. They made this type of picture, not production, but like stereotype kind of thing, because this is the way to show, I don't know, to the world or to your friends, to other people that I am in Shusha, this means Shusha is ours. That's a statement, basically. And that's a byproduct of the war and the images captured by Reza. It's interpretation of his pictures. Reza, he's a photojournalist, Reza Degati. He's a journalist, photojournalist. He's a thinker, he's a philosopher, he's a poet. So he's much more than just a photographer that takes very good pictures. Let's go to next picture. Yeah, that picture struck me a lot. Here we see the father with his 10-month-old child, baby girl, after the bombing in Ganja. I think it was the first bombing. And yeah, for me, that's a striking picture. Well, I don't know how this man carried on living. I hope somehow he managed to do this, but just, I don't know, this hard, for me, that's one of the most scariest pictures of this war. Yeah, can we go to the next picture? Yeah, I think this also, not especially this picture, but this type of drone footage imagery, it became or will become iconic because, yeah, we've seen it a lot. It's really strange. It's not a photography, right? So it's, first of all, it's a still from the video, and this bird's eye view. It's, I don't know. It looks like a computer game. It shows us what is happening or what was happening at the moment, but like we were not present there, and we're safe, but you know that like something really hardcore happening there. So I don't know, it's really strange type of imagery, really striking. Yeah. Can we go to next picture? Yeah, now that was from Azerbaijani side. This is Armenian side. This was the first time during the war I really saw the human human face of the conflict. I saw, like, I knew that our army was advancing, recovering, deoccupying the territories. And for me, these were like kind of concept, they were words. And when I saw so like I read about the bombings, shellings of Hankendi, Stepanakert, but when I see the people who are fleeing from this bombing, at this moment, I really understand that people can be killed. They were killed, and they were being killed at that time. So you really see the human face. And this is the story about two women. They have a Slavic type face. And the reporter, he took an interview of them. And Nakshun, her father is Armenian, her mother is Russian, and she just lost her husband. He was killed on the second day of war, on 28th of October. She was 3 months pregnant at that time. And her brother, he just came from military service, and have been taken back to the front line. And the women were discussing that that's illegal because he had to stay at home at least for 6 months. But well, in that place, they comment, in that place, everyone does what they want. There is, yeah. Yeah, basically her mom stayed because of her son, because of this young lady's brother, and this pregnant young woman, she went to Armenia. She fled to Armenia in the bus number 17. These are stills from the video from the TV Rain Russian news outlet reportage. And yeah, for me was that's represented the human side. After this video, I didn't think like that our army is fighting the enemy. I really understood like what is going on. Like people are killing people. Yeah, I don't know if there is something else. Is there one picture? No. Thank you.
Thank you, Orkhan. Thank you, and thank you, Arpi. These were very interesting and insightful. Aidan, let's go to you.
Sure. This will be our last question, if I'm not mistaken, from the moderators. And the question is, Arpi, do you imagine yourself working on a joint project with artists and journalists, including both sides? And how would you, if you do, then how would you imagine such a project?
Yeah, of course. And I have been working with Azerbaijani side, Azerbaijani journalists, both during my studies and also after that, for Caucasus edition and for our project in JIPA. And I hope it will be continuing, it will go on working together, because I think we can show the two sides and the real face only by including both sides of the conflict, if we want to talk about this conflict. So yeah, of course, I'm willing to work, and that is my one of my first goals, to be able to produce as many joint products as possible.
And is there anything in particular you have in mind, or is that for the future?
Yeah, I'm now working on some articles which are, now I'm working on people who are displaced from Karabakh and from Azerbaijani side, people who are going back to their homes. So these kind of projects, yeah, and I think there will be a lot to work on yet. More ideas.
Thank you. I'll ask Orkhan the same question. Would you see yourself working on a joint project with the other sides, so to say, and anything artistic in this regards or regarding journalism, and how would you imagine this?
Of course, I'm looking forward for a collaboration either with Azerbaijanis, Armenians, or just as a team. I'm really looking forward to go to the region in the near future, in several months. And if you have some ideas, like if you're a writer, journalist, if you want to make a documentary, I don't know, any kind of ideas, just message me, PM in Facebook, Instagram, I don't know, Twitter, any platform, and let's talk, let's exchange ideas. I also made like brainstorming after reading an article and want to share. That's not something that it's yeah, just an idea, nothing that will happen probably. I've read an article which said that the new transport communication roads that are planning between Turkey, Armenia, Iran, Azerbaijan, Russia, the first place where the train will enter from Armenia to Azerbaijan will be between Yarazh, this I think it's a city or a village called Yarazh, and Hyderabad in Azerbaijan. That's in Nakhchivan in Azerbaijan. And I just tried to imagine me being like my photography is connected a lot with the landscapes, with the place. So I directly imagine myself standing there and looking to the other side, Armenian side. And of course, you see no wall, but you can imagine like the wall that doesn't let you pass to the other side. It's impossible to pass. And I remembered the. Can we show the next picture? So I just used Google Maps to see how can we go nowadays from Yarazh to Hyderabad. I think there are only several hundred meters dividing them, but to make it happen today, you will have like to make all this, I don't know, 600 kilometers route around Armenia, then crossing the border to Iran and entering again from Iran to Azerbaijan. And I really visualized this as an obstacle, and I remembered a project, can we go to next slide, by Christian and Jean-Claude. They're environmental artists. So I directly visualized this kind of wall, a curtain, and I imagined a train, well, when the train will be working hopefully between two countries, like the train just penetrating this curtain, or I don't know, this curtain falls before the train crossed the border. So just, I don't know, some kind of strange ideas, but like, I think really interesting, just to highlight that like the wall has fallen, you know, like a Berlin Wall, but it was a physical thing. Here, there is no physical thing, but it still functions like a wall. Thank you. That was it for me.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Orkhan, for this. I think this is where we move on to the question and answer session. Diego.
Yes. So for this part, what I ask is for the audience members that they want to ask a question, they can send me the question as a private message on the chat. And hopefully write as well if they want to ask them themselves with camera and microphone. So I will encourage you to do so, and I will tell you how to proceed. So first, the first one we have is from Paul. Paul, you want to add, she says she wants to add something to what Orkhan said. So I think you should be able now. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to say something about what Orkhan was just talking about, because it really struck me, because unlike Azerbaijanis, in the case of Armenians, that spot he's talking about, Yeras, that is the main lynch area you have to pass through if you're ever going to go from Yerevan down to the south or even to Karabakh. And so every time you have to go through, you reach that spot where you come to the road has these blockades. You reach the blockade, you see Nakhichevan right there over them, but you have to turn, and then you turn this way along it and you keep going south. And I have photos of the actual spot. So I think what he said was really interesting because it was something that I always felt. I took pictures of it. I'm going to look and find my pictures now of that spot, but it was always a very, I think for every Armenian, if they realized where they were, I think it was, at least like me, a very strong feeling of we're going to Karabakh, but here we are reaching when we can keep going forward, but we're not going forward. We have to turn and go this way. And the Google Maps he had about, look how we could have just gone a couple of meters, but instead we have to go all this. That's also been the Armenian experience for Turkey. And even stronger, like that's where many of our original origins are from, inside of what's now Turkey. And to get there, we were in Armenia, we see Mount Ararat every day, we see, we can see Turkey, but to get there, you have to go all the way up into Georgia, all the way down, and it's about 15 hours. And this is a thing that Armenians regularly do because they have that connection to the land and they want to see it. But we always are aware again, we could just walk a couple of meters and be in Turkey, but instead we have to go 15 hours. So it's always been a thing that has really resonated with me in the case of Turkey, we see it as social injustice, historical injustice, because we're being kept out of what is ours. And in the other case, I can see that for the Azerbaijani side with, the ones that were displaced from Karabakh, which again, it might be a difficult thing to say because I don't want to make it a matter of, one side is right, one side is wrong, because there's a lot of wrongs on every side. But I think the less barriers, the better. And so whether it means not being able to cross, to just go a couple of meters to where your family is from, I think that's wrong, whatever the case. And I hope that we can take these barriers down in the next months and years in a way that is fair to everybody as well, though, not just taking it down for the sake of taking it down. And then it doesn't matter if you totally, do bad things to one side. I hopefully, that's of course the idealistic things, but it doesn't hurt to be idealistic as long as you're also being practical. So I just wanted to make those comments and add to what Orkhan was saying.
Thanks, Paul. So please send me the questions or let me know if you want to ask a question to the chat. I wanted to propose like a subject for discussion as well. Which is, since we are talking about like images and pictures, we have seen maybe during the war, like, for example, this picture of the soldier in Armenia, it became like a thing in Armenia. And then the pictures of the bombings in Azerbaijan, they became like, or the tea, they became like the pictures in Azerbaijan, but there has never been, it's really hard to find like pictures that capture like both sides, so to say, at the same time, and not in an aggressor victim position, And I think in the first days of the war, we actually tried to find the picture. We wanted to show it, but we couldn't find it. I think some Azerbaijani guy made a digital picture of, it was like two pictures next to each other of two soldiers, one Azerbaijani, one Armenian, that had died in the first days of the war. And they were two boys who must have been 18 years old, but they looked like 14 years old. I mean, they didn't have a mustache yet. And they looked so young. And I think he created this image which showed also like, it was like some attempt to show like some human face of the conflict and what it means when we see these drone pictures of bombing the ground. It actually is boys like them also being bombed or by the cannons. And I done well, since you're Azerbaijani. I think you had some like, because I only saw the picture, you know, on social media. Apparently it was not as famous as I thought, because we couldn't find it again, or not easily. But I think it was a bigger thing in Azerbaijan, this picture, right?
Yeah, I remember it being circulated on Facebook, if I remember correctly. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it again. But it was very striking. People reacted to it quite strongly, I felt. And yeah, I think it was one of the few pictures that was giving it indeed such a human face from the very beginning.
Great. So
I have something to say. I don't know
sure.
if I can or not. So yeah, just I was also always thinking that you find, like, I don't know, information from one side or from the other side, and I'm not sure if maybe someone knows about some kind of project where I don't know, visually the artist combines like the happenings from the both sides, so we can see kind of what was happening more or less at the same time in both places. So similar pictures, similar thematics. So it could be a very interesting project to show the people, you know, for the people that are always asking what about. So if you have like this, like a proof, like a document, you know, some kind of project which shows, like as an example, these two young guys who were killed in the war. Just, I don't know, can be an interesting idea for this type of project.
Somebody sent me the picture, so I will just show it for a moment, just for everybody to see what we were talking about. Otherwise, it's very abstract, in case somebody didn't see it. So it's this picture that we were talking about. You know, I mean, it's not a picture, it's not a photograph, it's a composition of the two boys with the flags for where they're from. And, you know, it's striking on how young they both look, you know. And I think this was also for me as an external, because I was talking with my co-hosts and everything, like, I think there were maybe some iconic imageries from the wars, but they were on each side. Like, there were iconic images or footage for Azerbaijanis, and there were iconic images and footage for Armenians, but they were not, me, for example, as a foreigner, I never encountered myself with iconic pictures from either the first, I don't think either, also from the Second War, you know, that kind of like had this international impact, so to say, you know. And I think this is really interesting, because sometimes it just takes one picture to create a whole discussion, and somehow the pictures just stayed in the area, you know. I remember like the picture of the dead Kurdish kid in the seashore, you know, in Turkey or Greece, I don't remember, some years ago, you know. Like, this picture started a whole discussion. I mean, things were happening, but it only took one picture to create, like, you know, a lot of things going on. And somehow the horrible things that happened in the First War and the Second War, it's like the horrors always only resonated within each country, mostly, you know. Yeah.
If I can add something to this photo also.
Sure.
So it was more spread in Azerbaijani social media, I know, but I saw this photo myself, and I showed it to many of my friends and also to my relatives. And when you see the reaction of people looking at the photo, it's very strange that it's really almost impossible to hate someone who looks younger than 18 years old, who looks like these guys, because it's easier for Armenian side to imagine this enemy like someone as Ramil Safarov, to give Ramil Safarov space to everyone, or to give someone's face who was cutting the heads of POVs. And the same for Azerbaijani side. It's easier to choose these perpetrators and to give this face to everyone, in soldiers and also citizens, just peaceful citizens. So when you give a face of 18-year-old guys who don't even look 18, it's really hard to hate, and it's really hard to see them as enemies. And the case was with these guys as well.
Brandon, do you want to ask the question yourself? I don't know if you're able to.
Yeah, sure.
Yourself. Yeah.
Hi, so I just had a question for Orkhan and Arpi. So are there any pictures that are images or videos that keep you up at night, but also in contrast to that give you any bit of hope in terms of Armenian Azerbaijani relations?
Yes, there are. And the thing is that the videos and photos that were also like the incidents that were more peaceful, that were about interactions between Azerbaijanis and Armenians, even during the war, were not spread as much as the ones that were about spreading hatred. So, for example, there was this video about soldiers, Azerbaijani soldiers and Armenian soldiers from Syunik region that were talking to each other, and they were both filming each other. Armenians were filming Azerbaijanis standing in front of them, and Azerbaijanis were filming Armenians. And they were talking to each other very normally, very peacefully, and they were even discussing to drink tea after it together. That was very, very surreal to look at it after the war. But that video was not spread as much as the ones that were about cutting heads or cutting ears, killing each other. So you choose which one to spread, which one to share with your friends and with your followers. There were, I think, there can be a similar amount of stories that are not about hatred, that are about peaceful coexistence, communication, but people are not feeling okay and don't feel safe to share those because they feel that they will be humiliated from their own side and they will be seen as betrayers.
I can't think about the very specific video or photo, but yeah, I can say that I've seen different videos. I try to share them on my Twitter, videos or photos. I remember one when I think also Azerbaijani soldiers or officers, they came to an elderly Armenian couple and just brought some pastry or cookies, I don't remember, some sweets. And the Armenian couple made a tea, so they drank a tea together. And yeah, and also this girl that I'm talking to, the Karabahi Armenian, in her documentaries, I've noticed like several type of groups of people, or I was able to analyze. And the group, the elderly people group in her documentaries, almost all of them, they show no hatred, or their only concern is peace, because they want their grandchildren to not see a war anymore and to live life, not to lose their lives in 20 or 30 years. And yeah, I could trace that the old people, the elderly people, they don't care much about themselves, mostly about their grandchildren.
Yeah. If I can add something more also to that about the older generation who has seen also living together and peaceful coexistence. When I was in Davos region after the July events, I was talking to many of them, interviewing them, and the strange thing is that for some minutes or even an hour, they can talk about what happened, they can talk about their situation, but they wouldn't mention the word enemy or Azerbaijani. And only when you ask them, only when you trigger them to say that, they will say that. But as we see from media on Armenian side and the Azerbaijani side as well, journalists are asking the questions that the people want to hear, the answers that people want to hear. But no one goes back before the war. How were the relationships, how these people used to live together, or how the people from Davos used to go to Tovuz station and how they were buying things from Tovuz. So if you go deeper and ask these kind of questions, people are always willing to answer and people are willing to share their stories. So I think this is the time that we should go for these stories and rediscover people who have all these memories together. And this goes also for people from Karabakh, Armenians and Azerbaijanis, or people who were displaced during the First War from both sides.
Yeah, I just had one more thing to add, but so I do agree that it is important to show the more human aspect of the conflict, but at the same time, I do think it is important to show those images that would be hard to consume, but I can also, just so people are held accountable on both sides in terms of certain crimes committed, but at the same time, if that's all that they're consuming, then that's all they're going to believe is going on. So to your point, I do think it's not healthy for Armenians or Azerbaijanis just to consume the tragedies of the war without like looking at nuanced conversations like these or images of peace, of soldiers drinking tea or whatever it may be. So I agree with both of you on that.
I wanted to comment to continue this conversation. So I agree with Brandon, but I think that we have a lot of like the disagreement stuff, footage, photos, I don't know, articles especially, right? A lot of problems are surging because of the demarcation of the border, a lot of stuff, and a lot of like smaller than the war issues we still have to overcome. So there will be like problems, local problems, and that I think that because of this reason, me personally, I concentrate on showing only peace stuff. So I don't show like this is the reality, but only positive reality, not like everything, because people can easily find like the rumors or real negative things going on, and it's harder, more difficult to find more positive stuff. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
We have a comment from Abraham, just information that the boy, the Azerbaijani boy in the picture, in the composition, his name is Nurlan, and that his father fought in the First Karabakh War and he lost a foot in that war. So just to put some names on the pictures. And then we have a comment from Sebastian, I guess is the name, because I always see the short. Yeah, Sebastian. I don't know if you want to share your, I can also allow you to put the link for everybody for a moment, and you can share what you wrote if you want. Sebastian Sankar.
Sorry, it's not, I'm talking from someone else's account. It's Camilla. Hi. Okay. No, I just want to say that I wrote to you in the comment section that this whole like presentation and kind of thinking about the visual aspect of the history of the two peoples just reminded me about the street artist called JR. He's French. And he has a lot of different projects, but he kind of pastes different portraits and in black and white all over the world. He has a really great TED talk that you can check out, but there's in particular his project on the borders of Israel and Palestine. So he has huge portraits on the border wall of people from like regular people from Israel and Palestine, and basically all the passersby, and he has it on kind of both sides of the wall, and he asked people to kind of differentiate. Can you tell who is Palestinian and who is Israeli? A majority of people on either side can't really differentiate. So that's kind of like just your conversation just made me think about that, about the power of image to kind of hit a point home about, you know, the commonalities between us. Yeah. So that it wasn't a question, it was just something that came to mind. And if people want to check it out, I think it's a kind of a source of inspiration as well for some of these visual and artistic projects.
Thank you, Camila. I just put the link there as well. And
Great.
Then we have Armine.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Armina, and I'm in New York. And I actually had a question, a comment and a question for both Arpi and Orkhan about the terminology that we use when we describe images or even art. What brought that to mind is two things that Orkhan said, which kind of brought back memories of mine. The first was the image that you showed of the drone image, right, from up top, because I think that when an Azerbaijani sees that image, probably thinks we won the war, right? So it's more of like a positive image. When an Armenian sees that image, an Armenian thinks, wow, that is death, that is how we lost the war, right? So that the image itself is triggering different things for two sides. And then that in conjunction of the word liberation, right? So when we say, for example, the first time I was in Nagorno-Karabakh was 2001, and I went to Agdam, and someone told me, yeah, we liberated Agdam, and I said, well, this looks like the opposite of liberation. I feel like you can liberate people, not things, right? So when we use certain terminology, for example, I completely understand why Azerbaijanis say we liberated Shusha because Azerbaijanis live there and now we can go back. But that also then means that these other people are kicked out, right? And so I was wondering if both of you can comment on the term, like especially the term liberation, right? Because both sides use this word in the same way, right? And it unfortunately necessarily means that the other side loses, right? So, and if there's another way that we can actually describe these things so that it doesn't trigger the negative, right? Because if you, for example, put up a picture of Shusha or Shushi, and you use, a word like liberation, right? The image might, actually resonate with Armenians, but they're going to look the other way because the terminology is wrong for them. And I absolutely understand. I'm not pointing fingers. I understand why Azerbaijanis would consider, say the liberation of Shusha. So I was just wondering if you can comment on that.
Yeah, if I can say, I think this terminology is really hard to consume. Both liberation and occupation, these terms, I think the right way to say is taking control over or regaining control, which are more neutral, and these terms that don't have any emotions in them and cannot trigger the other side. If you want the other side to also engage, maybe these terms wouldn't make them emotionally distant from what you are saying. But again, it's very hard not to use these terms when we are talking, not to use these words, liberation or occupation, because we also said liberation of Shushi when we refer to the first Karabakh war, and Azerbaijan say it now. It's really difficult to every time remind yourself not to say these words. Either it is liberation or it is occupation, or either it is Stepanak, Ertkhan, Kendi, or Shushi, Shusha. It's very difficult to find the common ground with these words because there are so many and there are two different vocabularies on both sides for the whole conflict.
Can I just have a follow-up? So then, because it does seem like the terminology matters, right? Because so what we're trying to do here is bringing both sides kind of together, right? And so using the right words, right, is actually very important, just as important. I mean, the images are incredibly important, and I really firmly believe in the power of the image. But if words can destroy that image, then we have to kind of kind of pick and choose the words that we use, and then kind of a follow-up. And so how do you get, you know, others to stop, not stop, but how to use the more neutral, I guess that's a good neutral terminology. How do you get, you know, your compatriots, right, to use, because essentially if you do use neutral terminology, right, that is essentially saying that you see the other side as a human being, right? So
yeah, but the thing is that, yeah, oh, sorry, I will just say one thing. The thing is that if you use this neutral terminology, your side might be blaming you, and you might lose audience from your side. Because, for example, if an Azerbaijani uses term regaining control over the territories, they might say, why not liberation? Because this is liberation. And the same for Armenian side. So it is really difficult to stay in touch and not too hard to the other side, and at the same time not too hard your side.
Can I just add something there? So, I mean, there is a lot of sacrifices also made in the efforts to sort of gain control over these territories. So it's part of the rhetoric to liberate. You want to call soldiers to liberate a city. You know, if you just say, let's go take control of it, you know, it just doesn't sound the same. That just doesn't sound as patriotic. I think that's part of the rhetoric.
Right. I think that that's exactly my point. It's part of the rhetoric. So when we're talking about, you know, like images or art or bringing people together, right? What are some other ways that we can kind of move away from the rhetoric, because it's so natural to do it, right? There's no, like, it's natural. It's not, I mean, you actually have to work hard to not do it. So what are some of the ways that, especially post-war, right, that we can actually use some different words, and how do you get others to use those words?
If I might just add something here as well, I do think it's a bit of a Pandora's box when you start talking about terminology and vocabulary, because there's just so much disagreement on it. And I think some words like liberation and occupation are at the very core of the conflict, right? So it's, I think, extremely difficult, especially on these words, to have people agree on what's the correct term to use. So I think maybe sometimes it's also part of the conversation to accept, in a sense, that, okay, you know, you have your perspective and someone else has their perspective, and try to still understand, because I think some words are so much at the core of what they believe that it's hard to disentangle them from your own beliefs, in a sense.
I do agree with everyone. Before saying liberation of Shusha, I hesitated because I didn't know what's like. I understand this as a matter of fact, but at the same time, I was understanding that if I pronounce it, this means that the people, Armenians, had to flee, had to go away. But well, at that situation, I didn't find the better word, the better synonym. And yeah, I think I agree with everyone. It's kind of different. It's difficult. Like, let's say we were repeating like first Armenian, then Azerbaijan name of the city, or vice versa. But I think if Arpi being Armenian will say it in Armenian, I totally understand it, and only in Armenian. And if I will say only in Azerbaijani, I hope that the Armenians will understand this, because right now we're not talking whose parts of the territory are whose, but like we believe in something, right? And this maybe this platform or this particular edition is not for this topic, for this very difficult, big topic.
Thank you. We have a comment to ask me to read from OJ, which says that he or she had a friend in Azerbaijan who was watching the footage of the drones attacking the Armenian soldiers. And his father actually started to look depressed and said that he felt sad to think that it was young soldiers dying in those footage, even if they were from the other side. So yeah, I think it's some reflection about the footage, which will for sure be one of the most remembered imagery of this Second Karabakh War. And then we have a comment from Mary. Can you unmute yourself, or do I have to unmute you? There you go.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Mary. I'm actually from Brazil. And I think the most interesting thing, as I was seeing those pictures again, I think what we should do in this context is more to show images of hope than images of people being beheading and stuff like that. I guess it was Brandon that brought this up, because I think that these beheading things are something that are good for justice, for the criminal court or something. But when we are talking about people-to-people contact, images can be pretty strong in a sense like that. This is how I view it. Like to show people really acting normally. I mean, Azerbaijanis and Armenians together.
Thank you, Mary. If anybody else would like to share some comment or ask a question, otherwise we can go to the closing words. Yes, sure. We have one last question then from Andrea Mansourian.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, so my name's Andrea. I just wanted to say I think this is a really great idea, this platform, because just someone who has been keeping up with the conflict over the past few years, and just the discussions at the Minsk conversations is driving me insane. And me as someone who studies history and that topic, like history, always was getting brought up. And it was just this back and forth discussion of some accurate information, some kind of exaggerated. This is a little convoluted. This is too complex to just generalize it. And yet in that discussion, in those conflict resolution discussions, there was never really a historian there. And even then, if there was, they tend to kind of be a little biased. So it's a little difficult. So I appreciate a platform like this, especially because these are just you guys are all regular people. We all have our own professions, but it's good to have like a platform to begin with. And I was just thinking like this idea of art. I'm also myself, besides studying history, I am a writer. I want to like publish some short stories one day, or some like historical fiction novels. And this conflict has been a big inspiration as well, and like it has given me ideas. And I've thought like, how can I portray both sides in these stories? A person who doesn't, I live in the US, so I don't really interact. I've never met someone who is from Azerbaijan. And then yet again, like that mentality of like, this is your enemy, you have to not like them. But I've never really met anyone. So it's weird. It's on its own, it's just strange. But I was thinking, in the case of using art in, let's say, Armenia or in Azerbaijan, how can people kind of use like this concept of murals as some way of like bringing back life, these old buildings, these like abandoned homes? Or like you guys were talking about that photographer Reza, and he has this one picture of him standing in front of I forgot her name, but she was a poet, and he's standing in front of like where there was a really pretty mural of her, but then yes, yeah. And now it's like just all destroyed. So I was thinking, well, how can people kind of, both Armenians and Azerbaijanis, come and kind of create something like that? Because it brings back life to something that is so meaningful to the culture, because both sides do this, like attack like things that is like, has like a cultural meaning and has like this like connection to the people. So it becomes harder to like try to have these kind of dialogues, because that concept of, well, you're trying to get rid of my culture, you're trying to ruin my identity or something. And then identity discussions get brought up. So it's this back and forth vicious cycle. So I wonder, like, how could something like that work? I also know maybe that could be difficult. That could kind of be a target once the mural is done, you know? So I wonder, like, I don't know how it is in Armenia right now. Like, are there kind of, besides very more like pro, we're gonna win war artwork, and also in Azerbaijan, have you guys ever kind of seen anything like that? Or do you think that would be a good idea to kind of start with like a collective community there, or even like the diaspora is hearing about it and saying, come join us and we're gonna make this like a project, an art project? And this is kind of for just a general question for anyone.
Yeah, I think any, maybe not particularly this idea, or maybe this idea, any kind of idea where both communities, like I like to think about our region as a community, and where all the people from both sides or from Georgia, they can contribute to the creation. And creation is also a working process, so there will be relationships starting, and people will go back to their homes and talk about what happened. Show their work. Maybe it will be shown like, I don't know, internet, television. So there will be impact, and yeah, all kind of conflicts. I was thinking how to make this type of conflicts. Maybe it's easier, like if there will be I don't know, a project, even a conceptual state, and then maybe if we ask the help from, I don't know, like I don't know, embassies, British embassy, I don't know, some other embassy to either to help or to sponsor these type of things. So they can be. Right now, I think that the both governments, the both states, they're occupied with like bigger things, more important, not like this level or this kind of things. You know, there are a lot of things to resolve, and maybe the third parties can really help and like help in conversation with the governments, and also help with the sponsorship, or I don't know, providing some kind of I don't know, stuff. Yeah, some help. Yeah, like helping. Helping because I don't know how the communities interact between each other right now. Like if there is interaction, or interaction is only in the places where people have to use the same road, like the road that connects Armenia through Lachin corridor through Shusha to Hankendi, Stepanakert. Like there's interaction there, and maybe some other places, and how like how it really happens. You know, difficult to understand how it happens.
Thank you.
If I can add something, yeah. I think right now we are in a stage, very strangely, that the interaction is on its highest level, not only physically, but also emotionally on social media as well, working together and also discussing the conflict. I never seen people being so open about it as they are now, and people who you wouldn't expect from to be able to engage in conversations and in dialogue. So there are now many more Armenians and Azerbaijanis being pro-peace and pro-dialogue than ever before, which is maybe strange that this is happening right after the war, but it's also understandable because people see now what war really is, and maybe they really want to engage in a peace process and doing something to stop the third one coming. So I guess right now any ideas and any projects are like people are very open to do anything, to try anything, and to collaborate together. And this is a very small corridor that is open now, and we should use it.
Thank you for your question, for your answers. Serge, do you want to share out loud the comment, maybe?
Yeah, thank you, Diego. Thank you, everyone. I know some on the Twitters. I'm French. I live in Baku, in Azerbaijan. I have Armenian friends in France before moving in. I didn't know anything about the conflict, guys, when I came. Peace is possible, you know. German and French have 3 wars, 2 world wars, and now they are in peace. So I truly believe it can happen. I truly believe there will be peace in the region. It will take a lot of time for sure. I'm married to an Azerbaijan lady. She knew some Armenians in Baku. They were in peace. So there is no reason it cannot happen. And the arts, it's a really great project. I love photo. I love Reza photos. And we need to work on it. And if I can help, I will try to help you guys. Because Azerbaijan is a really friendly country. And I'm sure Armenia is also a friendly country. So thank you so much to you guys.
Thank you, Serge. And you also wanted to make a comment? You want to unmute yourself?
Thank you. I wanted to just add one unpopular opinion, because I am from Azerbaijan. I live in the United States now, and I lived through the first Karabakh war in Azerbaijan. My family and both my mom and my father's side are actually from the affected areas. I will use neutral language. And you know, we talked a lot about imagery, and maybe that's just like my experience and my past trauma. When the Second War first started, I was actually, and I am ashamed to say this now, but I was excited because I was like, oh, finally, I will get to go back to this village where I last was in 92, 93, or that village, and I'll get to see my grandparents, great-grandparents' houses, etc. And, you know, just being honest with you guys, I was rooting for Azerbaijan, and I was happy. And every time we would get like the tweets from the government saying this village and that village was liberated, it was like, it was a holiday, right? We were just so happy. And then I'm actually getting emotional just talking about this. I started seeing the imageries of the war. I watched the whole video of the execution.
You muted yourself. There you go. You muted yourself.
Sorry, it was my son. But I actually started watching videos of the beheadings and everything, and I made myself watch the whole thing. And I'll tell you, that was the worst thing I ever watched. And I lived through this depression. And actually those hurtful images made me extremely anti-war. And I remember talking to my family who's still back home and just telling them, is this really the price we have to pay to get these villages, these towns back? I don't want them. Let them do whatever the hell they want. Why can't we move on? And I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. But I have to say that sometimes powerful images are actually what we need to shake us out of our little world where we think, you know, it's good versus evil, and one side is good and the other side is evil. It's not like that. It's actually very mixed and very complicated. And like, I know that I still have a lot of pain from what my family went through. And I know that a lot of people on the other side have the exact same pain, but like this vicious cycle is bad. And in my case, it was the awful images that I made myself watch because I wanted to know what was going on. And you know, and I told my family about it, and they were always like, well, they did the same thing to us. And like, and it was just like this awful, just disgusting experience. And I just like, I just want to say that, you know what, maybe these are the images we deserve to see, because this is what you get if you continue antagonizing each other, where people are so hateful of each other and they commit terrible crimes. And I just wanted also to say that I'm really ashamed, and I was one of the people that wrote letters and demanded people to look into this and for the authorities to open investigation
because that was just, you know, that was like one of the worst experiences. And it completely overshadowed any kind of joy I had for anything, and like the possibility of going back. And that's just the comment I wanted to add. I see there are a lot of participants from the Armenian side, and it's very hard for Armenian people sometimes to relate to us and for us to relate to you. But like, for me, it's the powerful images that shake me out of my little world that I built for myself.
Thank you a lot for sharing that with us. I think it surely resonates. Orkhan, wanted to say something?
Sorry, no, just unmuted the microphone.
Okay, so if we don't have any other question, we can go to our closing words. We're already almost in 2 hours, so we're to our time. Who would like to go first?
I've written an epilogue. I don't know if I can read it.
Sure, of course.
Thank you very much for sharing. That was heartbreaking, and me too. I was in the same situation that she just told us, until I started to realize that the like people are dying from both sides, but when I saw the footage, like different footages of people in the cellars and people that, well, when I just lived my peaceful, privileged life here in Europe, or went to supermarket, or I was imagining how people survive there, and like it was difficult to I don't know, to experience. I wanted to go there to suffer with them, to share their pain, because I felt ashamed being privileged and not being there and not being in pain. So I'll just read quickly what I've written. We had more than 600 fallen from both sides. It's our common tragedy. I hope we could have prevented it. As a society, we failed to find non-military ways to resolve this problem, and we also bear a responsibility for what has happened. These men and women had their beliefs, and they were fighting for all of us who remained alive, all of us, both Armenians and Azerbaijanis. We owe them and to their families. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Orkhan. Arpi?
Thank you for whatever you said. It was really touching, and I think, now is the time to see each other as human beings, not enemies, and we can use this time for that. And thank you everyone for this discussion. We need this kind of discussions, all of us, I think, and thank you, Orkhan, for being so open also, and for everyone for the comments. And I don't know what else to add. It was a really good discussion, and I hope to have this kind of meetings more often and to see others also in your platform.
Thank you, Arpi. My lovely co-host, if you want to say something.
I'm mute at the same time. I'd like to thank everybody for coming on today and joining us for such a long session, and especially thanks to Arpi and Orkhan for answering all the questions and having an open discussion. And once again, thanks for what you shared. Thanks, everyone.
I want to first thank my co-organizers, Aidan and Diego. there is actually a lot of work that goes on behind the curtain, a lot of headache, a lot of considerations. And yeah, thank you for being great partners. Thank you so much, Arpi and Orkhan. This was an amazing, amazing meeting with you. There's just so much that there's so much to take in from this meeting, and you made it amazing. Thank you. And the audience was amazing. Your comments, your questions, and your whatever you shared. I think, yeah, thank you so much for supporting us. And so many of you have reached out to us and offered your support, and we need it. We need it, we appreciate it, and we're all one group after all going forward. So thank you so much.
I wanted to ask Diogo, Aidan, and Arnold for great work. You're doing something big for our community, and I hope to see this platform growing and yeah, more people from different spheres, and yeah, more dialogue. We need dialogue. Dialogue is the most important thing that we need. Even if we disagree with each other, we need to talk to each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Orkhan, Arpi, Aidan, Arnold. Thank you also the audience today. I think it was a great meeting for you, everything you said. And if you missed part of it, remember it will be made available on YouTube briefly, and also as a podcast. And if you have contacted us to help us, we will contact you in the next few days as well to reach out and see how we can work. So thank everybody as well for that. And yeah, so that's it for today, for our second meeting. Once again, thanks everybody, and see you next time. Okay, bye.